At my best, words will fail you, because I'm using my own language.
500 projects, $28 billion at the box office. A living genius. Hans Zimmer has accomplished it all. But how? How did a boy born in Frankfurt, Germany rise through the ranks to become the blockbuster attraction for film scores? It all started in 1979. His career began to take off, except he wasn't in the film industry quite yet. After a stint in Krakatoa, Hans found himself creating music with the Buggles. Most notably, their hit song, Video Killed the Radio Star, would do enough to keep him in the history books forever. But he didn't stop there. Throughout the next few years, Hans played with numerous bands, wrote a song that paid his rent for a long time, and crafted advertisement jingles. Then, Stanley Myers entered the fray. Hans and Stanley partnered together and co-founded the Lily Yard recording studio in London. In that studio, they worked tirelessly to blend traditional orchestral sounds together with electronic instruments. The films began for Hans with his co-composition for Moonlighting. This debut film created an avalanche for Zimmer's future success. He co-composed 3 more films with Myers before his first solo film happened. Terminal Exposure led to The Last Emperor, which led Hans to an Academy Award for Best Original Score, his first of many. This film has gone down in the history books for multiple reasons. Zimmer's score being one of them, where he put the industry on notice by using a combination of steel drums and synths to create a score that wouldn't be bigger than the characters within the story, but elevate the world they lived in as a whole. The door was now wide open, and Hans completely entered the room. Chances are you've seen this film. You've heard this score multiple times. You might not realize that Hans Zimmer was behind it though. A film set in stone, accompanied by an infallible soundtrack, was tremendously awarded with an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, and 2 Grammys. This was his first foray into animated films and opened up a whole new genre of interest for our composer at hand. It wasn't until later, though, that he would work on more and more of these films. He followed this up with The Journey to the Line, a song that plays at the 9-minute cue of the Thin Red Line's climax, which comes together to give you one of the most powerful feelings within a film that you'll ever feel. After this, Hans went on a tear. He worked on a stretch of films that is mind-boggling. Gladiator, the DaVinci Code, Kung Fu Panda, to name a few. Gladiator's score accompanies you from the first scene of the movie. You're entranced into this world through the music behind what is in front of your eyes. The DaVinci Code. His composition works to create the sense of adventure and thrill through this foundational Grail quest in a way that I don't think anybody else would be able to. Kung Fu. A new chapter began for Zimmer.
So when you listen to the Joker, he's quite the opposite. It's like, a bow on a bow and arrow, and you stretch it.
Ooh. Oh my God.
And it's not pretty.
Christopher Nolan hired him to compose for his blockbuster, The Dark Knight, where Hans showcased a masterclass in composing to elevate, not overtake, the characters within a film. He followed up with a less serious role, yet his composition would prove to be anything but. Once again, Hans proved that he's a genius. In order to compose the soundtrack for Sherlock Holmes, he purchased a $200 broken piano. This ingenious idea quickly created a quirky sound for a movie that, at its heart, is quirky. One of the highest grossing movies of all time, Zimmer elevated this film through his soundtrack. He set the tone for the movie from the background. Hans showed what made him a pioneer in blending the orchestral sound with electronic programs by manipulating the horns and where he forged it to sound like foghorns over a city.
There are just police cars everywhere, as you can imagine. I drove in from about 10 miles away, and police cars were streaming in from all over the place.
The midnight release of The Dark Knight Rises was supposed to be a fun ending to one of the best trilogies of all time. It was meant to be Zimmer's final composition for a superhero franchise, and then...
Listening to reports of witnesses calling into local radio stations, we're hearing a lot that seem to suggest that people were in the theater while the movie was going on, and that there was a lot of confusion when the gunfire first broke out. People actually thought that this was part of the movie. There were multiple theaters here that were showing the film, and there are reports that gunfire went from one theater to another, and that people were injured and hurt in the theater.
The horrible events that took place that night in Aurora, Colorado, devastated Zimmer. To support the victims, he released a choral arrangement of a song in the soundtrack named Aurora, and sold this 8-minute long arrangement for donations from 10 cents to $2,500. That wasn't the end for Hans, though. He continued to elevate his sound and reach outside of the traditional film sense. He became Christopher Nolan's go-to on every film he releases, composed the anthem for FIFA's 2018 World Cup, and worked to compose the main theme for Planet Earth 2 presented by David Attenborough. He then co-composed for Blue Planet 2 alongside Jacob Shee and David Fleming, and has worked on a collaboration song for Frozen Planet 2.
I think the only work that I've done that's worth anything is working on, working for Sir David Attenborough.
I haven't covered everything just yet. Hans Zimmer composes from the heart. He makes everything he touches into a personal masterpiece and has shown that many times. Let's wind back the clock a few years to Hans lives in fear of the day his phone stops ringing. He proves again and again how valuable he is on every film he scores, every work he composes. He views scoring a film as a collaboration with the director. He has shaped the direction of a film based off his music multiple times and elevates every film he touches. Interstellar is no different.
Yeah, I spent a day writing, and I phoned his house at about 10 o'clock at night on Sunday. His wife answered, and I said, Emma, I've done it. Do you want me to send it over? She goes, oh, Chris is curiously antsy. He's like pacing up and down. Do you mind if he comes over? So he came over and he sat down on the couch, and I said, okay, I'll play it to you. And I played him this fragile little piece that I'd written about my son, really, relationship I have with my son. And I get to the end of it, and I'm going, so what do you think? Well, I better make the movie then.
Christopher Nolan gave Zimmer bits of the script to form his score off of. He made it personal to Hans by changing lines of the dialogue to make him feel as if he was composing something about his relationship with his son. This tactic worked incredibly. Hans Zimmer created what I would consider his best work to date.
It was very important to me that the music not pay any attention to the genre of the film. What I wanted to do was to engage Hans in a very pure creative process.
It's no secret as to how Zimmer's legacy and works have inspired the industry over the years. He was a pioneer in moving orchestral music into the new age we live in. He personally developed a digital library over the course of years by recording each note of each instrument within an entire orchestra, making it possible for him to build any sound he could possibly dream of. As of recent, he's been on a world tour performing his movie scores live with a 38-piece orchestra. He's not done yet, though. He still has so many ideas, but at this stage of his career, he's working to find new ways to evolve his sound.
Every movie had every idea, every device, every chord change, every whatever in it. Now I think it's more figuring it out what to do new, but it becomes harder and harder because I've used up so much ammunition in the past.
From a teenage boy who moved to London, inspired to write film scores by Once Upon a Time in the West, to a timeless composer whose works have cemented him in the history books with the likes of Mozart and Bach. Hans Zimmer has built this legacy by continually proving that creativity has no boundaries. Only time will tell what's to come for our man of the hour, but whatever's in store will prove to be yet another magnum opus. Thanks for watching.